Well, good morning. Again, we're at the time in the budget negotiations where things really need to move forward, and sometimes they do not. As you all know, for the last number of months, the Senate Republicans and House Republicans have put forward bills in a transparent manner. We've done things early. We've reached out to the governor. We've communicated at every step of the way to create a process that can help us get done on time, where we get good bills that both sides can accept and will help and prosper Minnesota. That has always been our case, and I think I can say that I've worked as hard as I possibly can to make that a reality. And I will tell you, as of late last week, it felt like that was still happening. But as the governor said, I think we do need three-way targets, and that's something that he originally said we needed to do, and we needed to have it done by April 28th. And the House and Senate Republicans agreed and said that was a good idea. And as we got close to that, he asked us to then have targets between the House and the Senate only. And we adopted that and did that as well. And so we continued to adapt and step and move to work with the governor. And then last Friday, I believe it was Thursday or Friday, he said we wanted three-way targets. And so we actually were hopeful that we could do this differently and in a way that was open and transparent and could get things done. What then happened over the weekend is that we suddenly started to slow down in a way that we were surprised about. We weren't going to meet Sunday, and even that was okay, but then when we weren't going to have another meeting till Monday afternoon, we were concerned. When we met Monday afternoon, what happened is we got 4 offers on 4 bills, but the steps were so small on the smallest bills that we didn't know how we possibly could get there. And I want to say that those offers were unacceptable. They were not, I think they were sincere first offers, but they were unacceptable and would not lead to getting done on time. And so we have said that we want to be available at that meeting yesterday. We wanted to get together that evening or this morning, and neither one of those were an option. Instead, the next meeting was going to be today at 1:15, and we still want to do that meeting. We still want to be available, but that concerns us. And then when we found out that the governor would not be available for any of the evenings this week, that concerned us. This is serious. And I will tell you that the House and Senate are saying, we are here, we are available, we'll meet anytime and anywhere, but we have to meet and we have to get serious. And so we want this thing to get moving. We are at a place where we have to get moving. We can't continue to do little steps and think that we're going to get done. And with that, I want to turn it over to the Speaker for his comments. But I'm very disappointed. I'm very frustrated because we can do this better, and Minnesota benefits when we do it better.
I agree with what the leader said. I think we have frustration at the slow pace that the governor is proceeding with. We certainly understand where his priorities are, but we also know that the governor gains leverage if he pushes us to the end. What we heard very clearly over the last couple of years is that Minnesotans don't like closed-door negotiations and things happening in the last 24 hours of session. So we left 5 weeks after our break to come together in a open and public way to negotiate these differences, and frankly, we're frustrated that we haven't been able to do that fully, and we want to encourage the governor to do that. We are, as the leader said, we're willing to meet with the governor wherever, whenever, to get this done. We feel like the work that we need to do together is important. We know that compromise is necessary, but we are also, we have prepared, obviously. I think everybody knows that we have bills that are ready to go to the House floor if we don't make real progress very soon. And we are ready to proceed with that backup plan, frankly, at any time if real progress isn't made, basically immediately. So, we really want to respect the public. We want to respect this process. We also want to respect the governor. And we know that he plays a very big and vital role in this process. So we're going to meet with him today at 1:15, or at least we hope we are. And we want those negotiations to continue, but we also are ready to proceed if the negotiations don't go well and quickly. So with that, I think we'll take some questions.
What needs to go well today to prevent?
Well, I think Senator Gazelka said it pretty well. We received 4 offers. If you piece those 4 offers into the bigger puzzle of what all of the bills look like as joint targets, there's no way to consider those as serious offers. I think the ag offer that we received was close to being serious. The others were just micro steps, and frankly, moving at that pace will not get our work done here on time. So we want to move quicker, we need to move quicker, and we need to have an honest and earnest conversation at the 115 meeting about how serious are we about getting to resolution, and how quickly can that happen.
Mr. Speaker, you've done this before. Is this the typical blow up before the break?
You're right, I've done this before, and I've been involved with a few of the blow-ups before the breakthrough, and that does happen. I don't think this is. I think this is us just preparing a backup plan. We want to work with the governor. We want to get things solved. The conversations with the governor have been good, but we also don't feel like the governor's been working at a pace that's quick enough to get the work done on time. And that has also been our criticism in past years. And I understand the governor's passionate about these issues. He feels very strongly about his state departments, but ultimately the legislature needs to appropriate the money, so we have to work together, and that's what we want to do. But it needs to happen quicker if we're going to get done on time.
Louder. At this point, all options are on the table. We want to be flexible. Our goal is, in the end, to pass a good transportation bill that covers roads and bridges. We know that we want to pass tax relief for all Minnesotans. We're not going to move off of those issues, but every option is on the table to get us to the place where we need to get with the governor to make those things happen. And we recognize that the governor has his high priorities, and we're open to that. We want to work with him, but every option is on the table.
Did you guys offer accountability?
We have not offered that yet. That is scheduled and slated for today. We made over the weekend, was maybe even on Friday, we talked with the governor about doing this a little differently, because in the first meetings that we had with the governor, he was very critical of our extremities, and we were very critical of his, and very often those things are taken very personally. So to bring the negotiations into a format that we thought would be more productive, I actually pitched, why don't we just together agree on what the middle points are between us, and let's negotiate from the middle out. If you believe the spending needs to be higher in an area from the middle, make the case for that. And that's less personal. And frankly, we think more productive. That didn't really happen yesterday, so yesterday's numbers were a bit of a departure. I think today, more than anything, we just need to have an honest conversation about, is everybody really serious about getting this done on time? Because we don't feel like the governor is showing the kind of progress that we would like to see to get it done on time. We've been very clear about wanting to set joint targets between the House, Senate, and the governor, and then letting this happen in a very open, public, transparent way, letting the conference committees and the commissioners work out the differences in the bills. We don't want to sit in a room behind closed doors where the public's not involved and go through budgets line by line. We don't think that's productive. We want people to do it in conference committee. That's what we've said from the very beginning. All of the bills that were sealed up last night have been posted for, I think, a week now. They were all that language was all adopted in open conference committees. You can't, I understand that the governor might be frustrated that we might not want to negotiate in a closed, non-transparent way behind closed doors, and that we want it to happen in a transparent way. I think that's what Minnesotans need to demand right now. This needs to happen in conference committee, not behind closed doors. And in order for us to set the parameters for the conference committee, we need to come up with joint targets between the House, Senate, and the governor. And that's what we want to do. That needs to be the goal. And if you notice the offers that we received yesterday, you can't put together joint targets with those kind of offers. They don't work. And the tough part is even finding the middle between our numbers doesn't work, because the governor is spending money that doesn't exist in his budget. He's transferring $700 million of healthcare access fund money to make his budget balance. There isn't $700 million of money in the healthcare access fund to transfer. So it becomes very difficult. I'm not saying that to be critical. The governor knows that because we passed the reinsurance bill after his budget was out. But together we need to work through that problem and find a balanced budget. It's not easy, but we have to do it together.
Speaker, the headline in the paper this morning is "In the dark of night, lawmakers afraid." Is that open and transparent?
So headlines you stated were in the dark of the night. In the end, when you're going to move forward, you have to meet as a caucus. The Republican senators met together last night to see which direction we wanted to go. The House had to do the same thing, and so as we're trying to move, there are parts that we have to move forward with, and then there's other parts that that are open to the public, but we're not going to invite you into a caucus meeting and say, what do you think? We have to figure out how we're going to come to agreement with what we want to do first. And so there are some things that we have behind closed doors, but as much as possible, we want it open. That's why we did it early. That's why we invited the governor in early, because we want this to work.
I'll also say that that headline is a misrepresentation. These conference committees, all of that language was adopted a week, I don't even know the timeline, a week ago, I think, in a public, open, transparent process. We've had hours and hours and hours of public hearings in those conference committees trying to work out the differences. That is an open, transparent process. Going behind a closed door in the governor's office is not open and transparent. And we know that's how this works and that we should be in there, and we have to set the parameters for what the legislators and the commissioners agree to in conference committee. But saying that what happened last night wasn't open and transparent is simply a misrepresentation. Though that language was adopted in conference committee in open, transparent hearings a week ago.
But aren't you guys going behind closed doors again today? I mean, are you going to actually debate on these bills?
I wish we were headed to conference committee to have an open, transparent conversation. But the governor, remember, we invited the governor to participate in that now 3 weeks ago, and the governor said no, right? The governor wanted to come up with joint targets by the 28th of April. Then he changed his mind and said, no, you come up with your legislative position. Well, we did that, and we did it by the 28th of April to honor what the governor had requested. We're doing our end. We're waiting for the governor now to reciprocate.
Now let me, one more comment on that, because what we really want is the targets, that we actually have the numbers that we have to work with. Once we have that, what I think that we ought to be doing is that we allow the chairs and the commissioners to work through about 85% of the bill, maybe 90%. That all is open. There's going to be some things that are very important to the governor, very important to the speaker, and very important to myself. Those we can talk about between the House, the speaker, the governor, and myself. But 85–90% of it, we want it to be worked out and done in that committee process. And I think if we do it that way, we're actually going to get bills that work together better for everyone. And so that's what we're hoping the governor will agree to as we're moving forward. We're not giving up. We're just saying we've got to get moving, and this is one step that we need to take.
If you sent the governor these bills that are being closed up last night and today, do you expect you to sign them, and if not, then what?
Well, I don't know. We're going to make the case for it all the way through. What the governor decides to do is up to him. The transportation bill in particular is very close. Ag is very close. Legacy is very close. A number of them are farther apart. We want to work with the governor, but if he doesn't come to the table in a serious way, then we'll have to make other steps.
I think these budget bills that we put together are great bills. We've got really needed tax relief from Minnesotans. We've got big increases in K-12 funding. We've got higher ed funding. I mean, there's just a lot of really good things in these bills. Huge increase in transportation, road and bridge funding. So our hope is that this is something the governor can adopt, because we know Minnesotans would be behind it. But if not, we want to continue talking to the governor as well, and we hope that we can make progress, that we don't have to send these bills to the governor. But we hoped that we'd be a lot further along by this point after our break, and unfortunately here we are.
So are you passing these bills today or not?
We may be. They're ready to go.
When will you tell the public whether you're passing these major omnibus bills? Just before you go to the floor?
Well, The bills are ready to be passed. I mean, we adopted the language a week ago. You know, they absolutely could come up on the floor today, tomorrow, very likely this week. You know, we're willing to adjust that if we make some real progress with the governor and have a really good, honest conversation, and we feel like that's being reciprocated. But if there's not progress made, you know, I think, frankly, we're not going to be accused of not getting our job done on time at the end of session. We're committed to getting our job done. We've done everything possible to make that happen, and we just, frankly, don't feel like that's been reciprocated from the governor. But we hope that will change in time, that we don't need to proceed with passing these bills. Very good. Thank you.
Well, as you know, the rumors have been swirling around the Capitol last night and this morning what the legislature's intentions are, and I guess we asked if they wanted to have the meeting we scheduled for this afternoon, 1:15, to receive their counteroffers on the 4 bills that we proposed our reductions of totaling $74 million. And they indicated they did. So I guess a little unclear right now what path they're going to pursue. We talked about negotiating these bills as conference reports without the coming to the floor for votes, and that is my understanding, has been my understanding of the way we agreed we were going to proceed, and we took the first step yesterday in a very sincere and genuine way. Again, we offered $74 million reductions from my original budget, and so today we understood they were going to come back and make their counter offers. If we continue on that track, then we will continue to negotiate, and if they decide to pull out of those negotiations and start voting bills on the floor, then that's another matter. But at this point, we're negotiating. We'll continue to negotiate as long as we have somebody to negotiate with.
Let me just say that I want to, in the back of the room, we have some teachers from Minnesota, from really all over the place. They brought today hundreds of letters from teachers around the state reminding us of how important it is that we do, that we strongly support public schools in Minnesota. It's a good reminder as we kind of go back and forth with this negotiating in the Capitol, that what we end up deciding here is going to have a significant impact on students and school districts all over the state.
Well, I think if the Republicans spent half as much time trying to find common ground as they spend trying to set up who's to blame if things fall apart, we would have 4 budget bills done by the end of the day today. The governor is appropriately focused on getting the state budget done so that we can continue to fund government. And the last 12 hours seem to be an elaborate amount of work to distract from the fact if they can't get counteroffers ready for 1:15 today. Hopefully, they will have counteroffers at 1:15 today, and we'll continue to negotiate.
I'm going to take the bait. You know, I think the question to ask them is, are they going to pursue the strategy that they talked about the day before session started? There was an event the day before session where they told a group of people assembled that their intent was to set very early committee deadlines, send bills to the governor destined for a veto, and then leave themselves enough time to negotiate the final bills. They announced that the day before the session convened, and I guess if that's where we are, then they ought to execute their strategy so that we don't run out of time here with 2 weeks left. If not, then they ought to come with a counter to the 4 bills that the governor made a proposal on yesterday, and continue to work in earnest on those bills and on the other ones.
Questions?
Governor, if they choose to proceed and bring these bills, conference reports to the floor without agreement with you for votes, what kind of signal does that send?
Sends a signal to me that they're pulling out of our negotiations, which are intended to avoid the necessity for the bills to go to the floor and then come to me and be vetoed and then go back to right where we are right now today with the differences we have. So, I mean, if that says to me they've reversed course and they're, you know, they don't want to negotiate, they pull out of the negotiations at this point and they want to follow this other tactic.
Speaker of the House and the Majority Leader are indicating that, in their belief, you are slow walking this. You're not available for negotiations except during the day. You're not available tonight. In their view, what they said this morning is that they can't wait any longer, and they'll start passing these bills out as early as this afternoon.
They keep attributing to me the things that they think I'm doing. I don't attribute to them. I just take what they actually do. I said I've got a commitment tonight, and tomorrow night and Friday I'm in St. Cloud for the fishing opener, and Saturday for fishing opener. And I laid out the time parameters. Yesterday we met for half an hour, 20 minutes, and we have 1:15 today. We can go right until 6:15. Again, as Representative Hortman said, if we just focus on the budget matters, we can get these bills resolved in at least 2 afternoons. So, it's just about their setting up this blame game, and I don't think more time is our problem.
Governor,
Are there any of these 10 bills, as you know them now, if they pass them off the floor, would you sign them or would you veto them all because they're not negotiated?
Well, the way they closed up the conference reports, again, in the dead of night or early this morning with no forewarning, the way they stand the last time I've seen them, I'd veto them all.
Governor, in the Public Safety Conference Committee just a few moments ago, they inserted, without any previous discussion, a rulemaking ban that reflects the language from the Real ID bill that was taken out of the Senate bill. Chair Cornish says that's not unusual. He says that in previous discussions you've never threatened to veto that, but Ron Latt says that is veto bait, just one more piece of veto bait in that bill. What is your response to that?
I'm sorry, I'm not clear what you're talking about.
They inserted Real ID language. They inserted a rulemaking ban into the bill with no previous discussion whatsoever in that committee.
I'd have to look at it and see. We have a rulemaking ban now. I mean, all this stuff they're contriving about the Real ID is pandering to their political base. There's no need. If their issue is about licenses for undocumented immigrants, I've been very clear publicly for the last 3 years or so, and I've told activist groups who want me to proceed, is that we don't have that authority. In an existing statute, Department of Public Safety Commissioner cannot proceed on any rulemaking without legislative approval. So why they have to keep inserting this in is got to be just for political gain, because it certainly isn't necessary from a statutory standpoint. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
How about in the arc of all this, you've been through this many times, is this the usual breakdown before the breakthrough?
Well, it's taken different forms. Whether it's a breakdown or not, we'll see this afternoon. I mean, we'll see if they are willing to continue this path to negotiate based on their position and our position, or whether they're going to start firing Scud missiles by sending us bills that they know I'm going to veto. I've seen both approaches, and we'll see what tactic they decide to employ.
Governor, the move by the Republicans to close out the budget bills, does that represent a turning point in negotiations here? Does it change the tenor at all?
Well, the fact that they closed them all up certainly, changes the tenor. But again, we're here to continue to negotiate. We'll be there at 1:15 to continue to negotiate, and we'll see what their counter offers are and see where we go from there. But certainly all the flurry of activity the last 12 hours and without any discussion with us and not any forewarning, just is closing up all these conference reports preparatory to sending to the floor for votes. I mean, that's certainly changes the tenor for sure.
If they pass, they're passing these bills out before, will you keep talking and negotiating while it's happening, or does that interrupt those negotiations?
If they're going to start sending bills, we don't have anything to talk about until they send all the bills and I veto them. Then we can start talking again. But that's their decision to pull out of the process that we've agreed to, which is we're going to negotiate these bills before they're voted upon. So that's really on their shoulders.
Governor, in answer to Mary's question, you used the word tactic. Does this seem more like a tactic than anything substantive on the budget?
Well, these bills contain, very significant differences on budget, and they contain a lot of policy. 609 provisions that have said again and again, I mean, we'll be here until next January if we are trying to negotiate 609 policy provisions. So, I mean, certainly they shifted from what we understood we were doing when we left yesterday afternoon with all this activity. Now, they said that they are not at this point bringing the bills to the floor for a vote. So you have to ask them what their strategy is or what their tactics are. All I know is what I see happening.
Governor, I know there's still 13 days left, but this all looks very familiar. And is it increasingly likely there's going to be a special session to maximize the pressure? You yourself have said maximum pressure is what's required to get people to move. Is that what this is likely to come to at this point? The differences seem so wide.
Well, the pressure should be to end on May 22nd. And traditionally, that's always been the pressure. That's the end line. That's their responsibility at the end of, by May 22nd, is to send me bills that I can sign. That's their responsibility as a legislature. They've had 4.5 months already. So if they want to meet that responsibility, we're on the right track to try to do that, which is to negotiate now. We still have a little less than 2 weeks to go. But if they're going to take this other approach, then it seems to me that they're indicating that they're taking a much more confrontational approach, which is not conducive to getting a resolution.
You made your 4 counteroffers yesterday, and again with public safety, they didn't acknowledge your counteroffer. They didn't consider your counteroffer. I'm guessing that's not how you would hope it would go. Is that upsetting to you that they just went ahead without even acknowledging that you had made the counteroffer?
No, I understood or expected that they were going to take the offers, and we hadn't shared them ahead of time, and then they were going to take them and use them as a basis to make a counteroffer this afternoon. So I know I wasn't surprised by that.
What are the odds that you and the Speaker will be in different boats at the fishing open?
We'll be in the same boat along with Senator Gazelka and his daughter. We're going to rely on Lydia Gazelka to be the peacemaker among us.
Question for the minority leaders, and I apologize for writing late, maybe you already addressed this. Are your caucus members being courted for possible override votes?
No.
It's not going to happen in the Senate. And I don't know if anybody has been asked either.
Are all the senators going to be present, Senator Bach, for these votes coming up? Do you know of any absences that could throw a monkey wrench in getting all these budget bills to the governor?
Well, they've got 34 votes. It's their job to run the Senate, but I'm assuming they won't take bills up unless they have 34.
Is there enough time if they go ahead and send all the bills to you and it gets vetoed? Is there enough time to actually complete the work? Like, how far does that push you back?
Well, I don't know. It depends on how long it takes them to debate these bills on the House and Senate floors and pass them, send them to me, the reviser, to finalize it. Then when I get it, I'll certainly respond quickly. But I don't know how long that process will take. I was ballparking a good week, especially with the fishing opener and like on Mother's Day over the weekend. So, the way I view it, we'll come back next Monday in the same spot we're in now. With the same differences that we have today. So in my mind, it would be a week consumed with that tactic.
Governor, is it more difficult to negotiate a budget when there's a big surplus or a big deficit? It seems like it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. They're both difficult. I mean, each has, again, we each have very, very different views what's best for Minnesota. And they were elected to represent their views. I was elected to represent mine, Senator Bach, and 32 others, very close majority, very close to a majority in the Senate, and Representative Hortman in the House. So, I mean, Minnesota should expect that we're going to have these very significant differences. The question is how are we going to resolve them?
Real negotiations need to be done on the big three, the tax bill, the human services bill, and the education bill, or are you guys just focused on those 4 that don't seem to take up a lot of the budget to begin with?
Well, we started with those 4. We agreed last week that we would make an offer yesterday, written offer of those 4. You're right, they're less complicated than some of the others. We started with those for that reason, thinking if we could resolve those, we'd off to a good start. But we'll certainly be prepared, if either later today or tomorrow, to present offers on E12 and Health and Human Services and state governments and environment, which are the other 4 most significant outstanding bills, and we'll be ready to proceed on those.
Governor, and the minority leaders as well, when this all went down last night, did you get any kind of notification or heads up that this was happening, any courtesy calls, or did you just find out as your members were called, and as you saw reports and announcements?
I received nothing. Senator Gazelka called me at 7 this morning, began a conversation. The Lieutenant Governor spoke with or met with Senator Gazelka yesterday afternoon, but did you get any indication this was their intent? No. So this came as a complete surprise. And we how many texts did we have last night? About 30.
How did you find out?
Texts. They find out by Twitter. I don't tweet, so then they tell me what's on Twitter and they text me that.
And leaders address how they were informed this was going down last night?
Well, the Republicans in the Senate caucus, they announced a caucus when we adjourned yesterday. And not too long afterwards, I had, I believe, 3 of my conferees, 3 different committees, call or text me and say, we got a call from the conference committee chair and they want us to sign a conference committee report. So that they had reached out to Democrats on the conference committee requesting them to sign a report. I actually don't know if any of them signed them. I didn't advise them either way. I think that's their decision. They're the conferee on the bill. But clearly, I believe they've all been closed up with or without any Democratic signatures.
And will any Democrats vote for any of the budget bills in the Senate?
Don't know. I mean, they voted for some going out into conference. I think, that's up to the individuals that were on the conference committee report, I think, to present the bill to the caucus, and caucus members will make their own decision.
And have you been given any guidance on when these bills may come up? And which?
No, I have not. And I actually believe it's just a sideshow. I mean, the real negotiations are going to happen with the governor involved. And if they don't happen with the governor involved, then the session's going to collapse. And it really is up to them if they want to participate in this sideshow or they want to have meaningful conversations with the governor.
Well, the conversations are with the 4 of us involved.
On the House side, they did tell us the order that they intended to take up the conference committee reports. So I would understand that to mean that they intend to take up the conference committee reports, but it could just be the order if they decide to take them up. We've been getting mixed signals from them about whether or not we are certainly taking up the conference committee reports or not. I was surprised at their press conference that they seem to be backing away from the concept of taking them up.
I don't want to turn you into a pundit, but since a lot of this is about the 2018 election, a collapse, to use Senator Bach's word, who does that harm the most?
It harms everybody because the people in Minnesota expect us to get our work done, despite our differences. Expect us to get it done by May 22nd. So, everybody suffers the consequences of failing to do that.
Maybe they're following the lead of their president. The president recently said the country needs a good shutdown, I think he said. So maybe they're following his lead. I don't know.
There's a pundit for the day.
Pundits usually work better in front of the microphone.
Senator Bach, strategic.
I meet you with the Minneapolis delegation shortly. To be continued. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
For Session Update, I'm Shannon Lurkey. Budget negotiations continued today behind closed doors between Republican and DFL caucus leaders and Governor Dayton. The GOP provided global targets to Governor Dayton. Governor Dayton responded with a counteroffer in 4 budget areas. The Republicans spoke first to the press at the conclusion of the meeting, followed by Governor Dayton. Here are their remarks.
So we did receive another offer from the governor. Our offers still don't really look like each other. They're still offering on 4 individual bills. We understand that when you pull one lever in the state budget, it throws another lever elsewhere. So it's really important that we really are talking about global targets together. We again pressed on the need to decide on those global targets, which we would call our guardrails, and let the experts, the commissioners and the chairs and the committee members kind of work out the details. The governor does, not sure he wants to do it that way, but we're still working that out.
Yeah, and just briefly, we are pushing for global targets. We were given 4 targets or four responses to the 4 bills we have been working on. We have to take some time to figure out what we want to do with that, but we, in the end, are really needing global targets.
What's the plan now with the bills pushing forward in the 4 or holding off on that?
Well, that's why we want to discuss what we're doing. We really wanted global targets on all of the bills. The governor wants to take each one and work through it. We're concerned about the time that takes, but that's what we have to discuss now.
Is there a chance that they could still come before today, or are you pushing that off for another day?
We're going to discuss that. I'm not sure we know the answer to that yet.
Yeah. All right, thank you. We just want to give you a brief update.
Plan to bring another offer back. We need to talk.
Well, we met for 2 sessions combined of about 2 hours and had a civil conversation. We presented our further counteroffers to the 4 bills that we started on yesterday. We cut another $48 million, $48,670,000 from the reduction we made before, which were $74 million. So combined, we're at 122,670,000, and didn't get a specific response to them. So we'll see if they consider those to be meaningful cuts. We consider them to be very serious cuts and offer, very sincere. And then we spend a good part of time talking about Health and Human Services. Their number in their offer was $470 million cut. We said, we really need to know where that's going to take effect on real people's lives in Minnesota. And we need to reconcile some of our numbers on the Healthcare Access Fund based on the reinsurance, of course, some of their numbers on the inflation assumptions, so that we get down to a real agreed upon starting point for Health and Human Services, and then we could get into a discussion of, well, if you want to cut $100 million, where is that coming from? $200 million, $500 million? Yeah, but it's got to talk about not numbers, real people's lives. So and said then, and given that we came with the first offers for the 4 bills we've been talking about yesterday and today, we asked them to make the first offers on E-12 education, on Health and Human Services, which we may have to set aside till we get some further work done on state government and on environment. And so wait to see, but my expectation at this point is, with absence of anything to the contrary, that they will come back. And again, they have numbers on a piece of paper, but I said I really want greater specificity on where these numbers are. On the E-12, if you take a 2% increase in the formula, that's $371 million. That's the whole amount. So that means nothing for pre-K and nothing for special education and nothing for anything else. On the state governments, they want to cut $40 million. They said, we want to hear in some detail where you want those cuts to be made. That's based on our fulfilling our statutory responsibilities in the state agencies, or things that previous legislators and governors have agreed upon and signed into law. So with $40 million less, what do they want us not to do? And what's the basis for that? And given that they raised their own budgets and they have a carry forward from the funds they have accumulated that they won't allow the executive branch, we'd like to get a justification for why their numbers are, why the treatment for themselves is different from how they're treating executive branch agencies. And finally, I pointed out that their offer is a $1 million for tax cut, $372 million for transportation. We have a $1.5 billion surplus remaining after the reinsurance. So there's $1,372,000. That's almost everything. Similarly, if you set a tax bill of $600 million, which I've heard from some sources is what that might be agreed to, that's still, along with transportation, that's $972 million, and that's money taken out of the general fund for this biennium and the following biennium and the following biennium. In fact, with tails, it'll be greater. So, you know, basically, they want to shortchange a lot of other areas we think are very, very important: higher education, E12 education, in order to have a maximum tax bill and transportation with long-term effects that I think are putting Minnesota in a very precarious financial situation.
Governor, the Republicans have said you're reluctant to do global budget targets on all areas. You want to do it kind of piecemeal, as you've been talking about. Why is that?
Well, I care about the details. We presented, the way we agreed on Saturday, we would present first offers in 4 areas. We did that yesterday. We had the details, what we had previously, and then where we were making the cuts. They came back today, they didn't discuss it with us, but they came back today with numbers for everything. And so now we just need to agree on these numbers. Well, the numbers have details attached to them. As I said, $372 million for higher education, for K-12 education, E-12. I mean, that's everything in a 2% formula. So it's like, again, what do you not want to do? I mean, their numbers differ significantly, about $420 million from the midpoint, which is where we said our frame of reference would be. So, you know, I mean, just picking numbers out is not satisfactory to me. I want to know the details. If they want us, they're going to cut the state government by $40 million. Tell us where that is. Then they want to provide $3.3 million for premium cigars, which they slipped in the bill after they gave what the Commissioner Bauer, which they said was a final spreadsheet yesterday, and they slipped that in. So where does that $3.3 million come out of? Special education, you know, early childhood. So I mean, you know, again, we're trying to get reconciliation, but I'm not prepared to just say global targets. I mean, that's the crux of our difference on the budget, is the difference on spending priorities. And again, they made their priorities clear: $1 billion tax cut, $372 million general fund for transportation. That's $1.372 billion taken out of the general fund for this biennium and subsequent ones. In fact, it'll increase in those biennium. I mean, that's a huge decision to make, and it affects all the other areas of spending, and they want to just sort of pick a number. So we said, tell us what your numbers are. Tell us for E12. Tell us for environment, which is a $15 million cut. Tell us for state governments, $40 million cut. Tell us what you want us not to do.
So any progress today?
Well, I thought we made progress. We came back with further counteroffers on the 4 bills that we agreed upon on Saturday, were the ones we were going to start with. We came, as I say, another $48,670,000 below the $74 million that we had cut the first time. So we're, as I said, I think $122 million. Somebody do my math. 174 and 140. I used to be able to do that in my head, but anyway, $124 million thereabouts we come off of for those 4 bills. You know, I mean, they came off $115 million off the tax bill in their first offer. I mean, so we come off spending more than they came off in taxes. I mean, but we go back and forth on this. I mean, the fact is we have major differences. And again, I want to know the details of what how they justify the kind of cuts that they're proposing for E12 for state governments, environment. They come back with that. Well, you know, then we'll have coastal global target. We still have health and human services. You know, they still have the transportation where they've taken that money out of the general fund. So I mean, you know, but we're making progress. We had 3 days of serious discussions, and I think we've made progress.
Governor, the Speaker said that he thought a more transparent process for Minnesotans was to do the big picture with the leaders in the closed door room, and then let the conference committees sort out the details with the commissioners. And I take it you disagree on that process?
Well, they closed the conference committees We said we were, the parts agriculture, part on public safety, corrections. We agreed, offered this offer, you know, $10 million for corrections, $5 million for public safety, and said our commissioners and policy staff will work with your chairs to work that out. But, you know, we were available in conference committees all from the very beginning. We had all of our commissioners, we had our policy people. We put 190 pages of our specifications in front of them, and most of that was largely ignored. So I'm not, you know, there's some things willing to turn back over to others, but on E12 education, I mean, they want me engaged, they got me engaged. I'm not going to just sign off on some kind of cut on E12 and say somebody else go figure that out. I care enormously about what's funded in that area and what's not, and so we'll have to thrash that one out ourselves. Higher education again, the same kind of concerns. So, you know, I mean, they want a transparent process. It wasn't very transparent for the last 24 hours when they snuck all these bills through and added premium cigar things that nobody'd seen, and the conference committee had not seen before. So, you know, if they want a transparent process, make it as transparent as they like. They haven't suggested any more transparency in the meetings we've had, so they come out rhetorically for it, but tell us what, if they want more transparency, tell us how they want it.
Anything else? So, but or from here, or are you going to be
around? They came back, you know, my understanding is they'll come back tomorrow with details on the offers they made on E12 education, environment, and state governments. We also tasked Commissioner Piper and Lauren Gilchrist in our policy office, and their chairs, Senator Benson and Representative Dean, who was not present today, but tasked them with reconciling some of these disparities on the health and human services. They've got a $470 million savings in their global target, and we need to know what constitutes that in real dollars, and also, again, in real cuts for what services or payments to Minnesotans. So if they can, you know, put a dose of reality from both sides, both in terms of the Healthcare Access Fund, we have to revise that downward based on the assumptions we made in January, and in terms of some of their inflation numbers. So, and they have the expertise. So there's an example of where we have turned it over to, not to the conference committee, but to the, you know, chairs of the conference committee, and our two experts said, you know, can you work this out for us? Because that's an area where I don't have the detailed expertise. I don't think they do either, to really delve into what's the basis for that. And that's a big part. If you look at their target proposal, $470 million reduction for HHS, I mean, that's a very big number. So we need to know what the effect is on real people's lives.
Did they say, Governor, that tomorrow they are going to come back, which will specifically they come back tomorrow with some details of the global targets?
We asked, I told you what we asked them for. They didn't respond specifically what they intend to do, so I think they went off to discuss that among themselves. You have to ask them what they intend to do.
And if their intention is to start taking up bills, no meeting tomorrow?
I'm not going to prejudge what they're going to do. At this point, we're following the agreed upon path of negotiating and trading offers in writing, which we're sharing with you and with the public. And, you know, if they want to change the ground rules, if they want to pull out of those negotiations to take a different course of action, we'll have to see what that is and then see how we proceed accordingly.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.